Hello? Welcome to Night, where the dark speaks and true stories haunt. This channel brings you real horror experiences, urban legends, and chilling encounters that people have truly lived through. Every episode is based on actual stories, told in a way that pulls you into the shadows. From haunted houses to unsolved disappearances, strange family secrets to ancient curses, we explore the kinds of stories that leave you questioning what's real. Perfect for late night listening or a lonely commute home. Subscribe and let the night in. If everyone can leave a comment to let me know where you are listening from in the world. Story: autumnwalk.ru. The early 2000s were a magical time to be a kid online. It really was a Wild West era of the internet, with a lack of sophisticated moderation and the novelty of the whole thing, making it feel like this uncharted territory, a blank slate just waiting to be filled with raw human expression. Every second spent surfing the web on the family PC was a privilege, mainly because you never knew how long you had before your mom would shout at you to get off that god dang internet, because she needed to use the phone. Sadly for me, whenever I think back to those simpler times, I also can't help but associate them with what's probably the most terrifying moment of my life. It was one of my buddies who first told me about autumnwalk.ru. He said he found it on some obscure Russian message board, which, yeah, seemed about right. I don't think you can access it anymore, but back then, it would take you to a home page that had the default Windows XP Autumn wallpaper as its background, this one, in case you need a reminder. There was nothing on it except for 3 arrow-shaped links pointing in different directions, straight, right, and left. When you clicked one, the site would freeze for a second and then refresh back to that same landing page with those same 3 options. There didn't seem to be any real point to it, so I was pretty confused why my friend was so excited to show it to me. He didn't want to spoil the surprise, so he just told me to keep clicking. Sure enough, after trying each link multiple times in random order, a tiny, poorly cropped image of a woman in a bikini appeared at the very end of the leaf-covered path. I looked over at my friend, who was draped against the back of my chair, grinning from ear to ear. That's when he finally explained what the website was about. Each correct guess would move the image closer, and supposedly, if you kept going, you'd eventually unlock a gallery with more risque stuff involving the woman. But every wrong guess reset the sequence back to start, and since the directions changed randomly on each attempt, it was basically a game of pure luck. Only one guy from the aforementioned message board was said to have made it all the way to the end, and according to him, it was well worth the effort. Before you judge. Keep in mind I couldn't have been older than 15 at the time, so the prospect of seeing some naked boobs, or possibly more, was a pretty strong motivator. For a while, autumnwalk.ru stayed as an inside joke between my friend and I, but then one of us slipped during lunch, and pretty soon the whole school knew. Before long, every teenage boy in our class was talking about it and hyping each other up. Those who didn't have computers at home would sneak into the library to try their luck on the ones there. The game was addictive in its simplicity. Some claimed to have beaten it, but whenever asked what's at the end, they'd give vague, obviously made-up answers. At the same time, though, the rest of the U.S. couldn't prove them wrong, because nobody could actually beat the damn thing. After a few weeks, the hype started to die down, and everyone, including my friend, kind of just forgot about the website. Everyone except for me. I don't know what you'd call it, maybe a compulsion? But I just couldn't let it go. There had to be more to autumnwalk.ru, and I was set on finding out what. I went back to the same forum where my friend had originally found the link, but unlike him, I didn't speak Russian, so I couldn't really participate in any of the discussions. Google Translate wasn't yet a thing back then, so I had to use other translation tools, which honestly just confused me more than they helped. But then one day, one of the forum members posted a blurry picture of their screen, probably taken with a digital camera. Their finger was in the shot, pointing at a seemingly arbitrary spot on the bottom right of the autumn background, just below the wooden fence. Despite not understanding what they were saying, the excitement in the comments was evident, so this had to be a major breakthrough of some kind. I went on autumnwalk.ru and clicked around the same spot shown in the picture. I nearly jumped out of my seat when the page refreshed, and I suddenly noticed that one of the arrow icons had turned gray. I was left with only two choices. With the odds now 50-50 instead of 3-1, I figured that with enough tries, I'd eventually get lucky. I was actually making progress too. The bikini-clad woman was gradually filling more and more of my screen each time, sometimes to the point where I could count the individual pixels making up her image. It almost looked like a magazine cutout. The way she was standing, her broad yet clearly fake smile, it was just way too polished. Of course, I'm only now processing those details in hindsight. Back then, all I knew was that she was pretty and I wanted to see more of her. I know what some of you might be thinking, and yes, there were certainly easier ways to view porn even back then, but it wasn't about that anymore. I'd invested too much time to let the mystery of this website go unsolved. Still, despite the fairer odds, it was still ultimately a game of chance, and an infuriating one at that. I can't count how many times I rage quit and went to do something else, only for my curiosity to draw me back. And then one random Sunday evening, I just did it. Don't ask me how. I wasn't even paying attention, just passing time between messaging my friends on AOL. The site refreshed one last time, and suddenly a window popped up, showing what looked like live webcam footage. Staring back at me was the blank face of a middle-aged, shirtless man sitting in the middle of a dark room. My speakers crackled to life, filling the silence with an odd, grating mix of buzzing and rattling, like the sound of a broken AC unit. The first thing that stood out to me about the man was how round his head was. It was almost a perfect circle, with wide cheeks, a receding chin, and narrow lips that formed a thin, black line. His hair, and even his eyebrows looked to have been shaved down to a stubble, adding to his mannequin-like appearance. He also seemed unnaturally pale, but maybe that was just because of the stark contrast between his face and his surroundings. Needless to say, it was hardly the titillating prize I'd been hoping for, and yet I couldn't bring myself to close the tab. This was just way too weird not to keep watching. The odd man remained perfectly still for quite a while. The only thing that shifted were his eyes, like he was reading something off a screen. At first, I wondered if he even knew he was being recorded. That was until his wet, beady eyes locked straight onto mine. It was as if he had just realized he had an audience. A shiver ran down my spine when his neutral expression turned into a smile. Out of nowhere, he became more animated and excited, his right arm moving off-screen in what I initially interpreted was a gross gesture. His face was slick with sweat as he stared right through me. I don't think he even blinked once. Just as I was about to press the power button in disgust, my expectations were subverted yet again when I heard a ripping sound and saw him hold up a torn piece of paper. He acted like a giddy child as he brought it closer to the camera. I leaned in to get a better look, only to recoil just as quickly. It was a crayon portrait of me. A really crude one, sure, but the glasses and orange hair made it way too much of a coincidence. But how? As far as I knew, we didn't have any cameras hooked to the PC. My head swiveled in all directions, scanning every corner of the living room. There was light spilling in from the kitchen, where Dad was listening to his radio. Should I have told him? Told him what, though? How would I even start to explain what was happening? While my mind raced, I could hear the man giggling as he continued waving his drawing around. He flashed me a big, toothless grin. I couldn't even see any gums, just a black void where his mouth should be, almost like one of those creepy comedy masks. His disproportionately large head bobbed from side to side, making my skin crawl. Suddenly, his expression shifted again, from childlike glee to that eerily neutral stare from before. I could see his non-existent eyebrows scrunching, as if he was trying to make sense of something. His arm moved again, more uneven and hesitant this time. After a few tense moments, he held up the drawing of me again. But now there was something new. Another face peeking from behind me, just above my squiggly orange hair. It had round, hollow eyes, a long nose, and dots around its mouth that were meant to represent a beard. Red devil horns sat atop its head. Beneath the juvenile sketch was something scribbled in Russian. I didn't know what it said, but the bold exclamation mark seemed to hint at a sense of urgency. Maybe a warning, as I'd much later realized. That's when I felt Dad's heavy hand on my shoulder, causing me to snap back around. He blinked in confusion as I frantically rushed to unplug the PC. Scratching his beard, he looked at the now dim monitor, then at me. He winked, patted my head, and said he wouldn't tell Mom, but I should be more discreet next time. I guess he thought I was just looking up porn, which, to be fair, was the initial intent. That was the last time I visited autumnwalk.ru, but I wish I could say that was the end of it. 5 years ago today, I learned my dad wasn't the man I believed him to be all my life. Behind the facade of a typical family man was something far more sinister lurking beneath the surface. Unbeknownst to my mom and me, whenever he said he was on a work trip, he was actually indulging in some of his, let's just say, darker urges. I won't go into the gory details out of respect for his victims, but in the span of a few decades, he had changed many lives for the worse. Irreversibly so. You probably have an idea what I'm hinting at. And for a long time, I convinced myself it was a ridiculous and disrespectful leap to think that some creepy guy online was trying to warn me about my dad's disturbing hobbies. But what cemented it for me was when I finally learned enough Russian to retrospectively piece together what the message read. There's a body in the trunk. There was